enjoy it. This is ultimately the core about the core dashboard, our tool for management for open access content in your repositories. We hope you will enjoy and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mo, for the introduction. I am absolutely delighted with the, by the interest of the community in this webinar. And yeah, we will get started right now. And I want to start with, I assume that many of you are aware of what CORE is, but just very quickly, the key mission of CORE is to index open access research worldwide and deliver unrestricted access for all. We are trying to be, and we are, a comprehensive bibliographic database of the world's scholarly literature. We are a not-for-profit scholarly infrastructure, which is dedicated to the open access mission. And one of the key principles that underline our existence are the principles of open scholarly infrastructures, or so-called POSIT principles. Our key audience that we try to serve is the global network of repositories and journals, and we are here to really help you to increase your discoverability, help you ensure open access compliance, and make sure that your metadata are in a good condition, basically, and that the metadata are, they are expressing what and describing what you actually have in your collection. And last but not least, one of the key reasons why CORE exists is also that we provide solutions for machine access to research. This is something that we have started with more than 15 years ago, and today it is more important than ever because we need both humans and machines to be able to access research literature. So this is just about what CORE is, but today's webinar is primarily about just one of the tools that CORE provides, the CORE dashboard. I am one of the speakers, and the second speaker with me is Catherine, who is our community and okay, let me reshare the slides. I don't know, 1 second. I do apologize for this. This will be just. Okay, so the other person who is, as I'm loading the slide, is Catherine. Catherine, can you show yourself maybe? Who is?
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no, it's fantastic. I have managed to. I hope that you can see the slides again. And who will be delivering the webinar with me. So, CORE. Just to let you know what we have in CORE, we index metadata records from repositories around the world. We have at the moment content from more than 13,000 data providers from over 150 countries. And the content exists in 90 languages. It is about 400 million metadata records, basically, from these repositories that we index. And we estimate that this represents about 299 million unique academic research works. And we, because not every metadata record necessarily corresponds to full text content available inside the repository, we have, and we are hosting full text for about 46 million items. So that's just some quick statistic about, what is available in the CORE's collection. There are many services that CORE provides. Basically, we provide services for content discoverability, for access to the data, for identifiers, and for the management of CORE's content. And today's webinar is not about the entirety of CORE. It is only about the repository dashboard. So what is the CORE repository dashboard? So the dashboard, I would say that the dashboard is can be or can resemble for those of you who are administrators of, for instance, of web pages or webmasters. You probably are familiar with a tool called Google Webmaster Tools or Google Search Console, which is effectively a tool that helps you to understand how your website can be used. And CORE Dashboard is a very similar kind of a tool, but it is intended not for webmasters, but it is intended for repository managers. So it is a tool that helps you to understand what is in your repository, Is the context in your is the content in your repository properly indexed, or are there any issues? How can people who are who from the outside of my institution able to see the content in my repository? So these are the kind of things that the core dashboard can help you to understand. In today's webinar, we are going to address 3 specific areas which the dashboard can help you with. The first one is discoverability, and Catherine is going to talk about it. The second area is about open access and fair compliance, effectively talking about how can you use the dashboard to comply with open access policies, and how can you use the dashboards to make your repository aligned with the principles of findable, of FAIR principles, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And finally, the last area will be about understanding what is actually in your collection, getting a better understanding of the content in your repository, enrichment of the content with metadata that might be missing in your repository, and general management of your collection. Once we go through these 3 areas, we will also tell you about how you can get started. So there might be some of you who already have access to the core dashboard. In that case, wonderful. There might be also some of you who don't yet have access to the dashboard. In those cases, we will tell you how you do that. And in case you do have access to the dashboard, then we will tell you effectively, and by the end of the webinar, you should know how to use the dashboard in a better way. There are also many things which are new in the dashboard. So even though you might have used the dashboard in the past, certain things might have changed and been updated. Last but not least, and before I hand over to Catherine to walk us through the discoverability, I just want to mention that and highlight that the dashboard is one, but not the only benefit of core membership. And some of you might be core members and might be familiar with this, but indeed, it's only one of those. It's only one of those membership benefits. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Catherine to start with talking about discoverability.
Yep, thank you so much, Petr. Let me take the control. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Core Dashboard webinar. And let's start with the first set of tools which help with increasing repositories discoverability. So the Overview tab, which is the very first tab in the core repository dashboard, provides you with information about how core and the outside world sees your repository and the content within it. The Overview tab provides you with the information. Yep, the Overview tab provides you with information about metadata and full text that Core was able to index from your repository, from your system, and that the outside world sees. Here is how many metadata records and full texts were successfully indexed during the last indexing process. And here is a graph which shows the enrichment of your collection during the last months in this case, and you can also switch it to the last month or to the last year. The Overview tab is actually the starting place from which you can access all the modules in the dashboard that we will tell you more about during today's webinar. Okay, so Indexing tab is the starting place of the dashboard, and let's go through each of its components. This part of the Indexing tab provides you with the information about when exactly the core crawler indexed your repository last time. It gives you information about the metadata and about the full texts that we have discovered, shows you the number of issues and the number of outputs affected by them, by these issues. In this section of the Indexing tab, you can see whether you are indexing and how your indexing is scheduled. In the bottom part of the slide, you can see a list of potential issues that the core indexer might have encountered during the indexing process. These issues can be warnings or errors. And as an example here, we are showing a warning which is related to encountering embargoed full text. We know that the full text is in the repository, but we cannot access it. So this is just a warning, and there is actually nothing you should do with regards to this. Okay, let's move forward. But sometimes there can be very serious issues which get detected, and we call them errors. For example, these could be links to disallowed URLs. This could be because of the same domain policy which blocks the access to the full text. In order for core to be able to index your content, it must be hosted within the same domain. And if it isn't, you need to let us know. This is to ensure that the content of other external data providers linked from the repository is not treated as content belonging to your repository. And exceptions are made when the domain is owned by the same organization. In such a case, we would advise data providers to contact us. And also on the right part of the slide, you can see that we don't want to leave you just with those warnings and errors. So we also provide the recommendations on how to fix them. And it is really useful for repository managers to monitor these warnings and errors from time to time and to fix it. And if for a particular reason you need core to reindex your repository, you can simply request reindexing straight from your dashboard. So if there were any issues that we have detected, and then the repository manager fixed those issues, they would most likely want to use the request reindexing button. Also, if you have added any data to your repository and you want it to be in core as soon as possible, you can again schedule the reindexing manually just by clicking the request reindexing. Otherwise, newly added outputs will be picked up during the next indexing process. Let's move forward. Notification tab. So if you, as a repository manager, want to be periodically informed about the indexing health of your repository, then there is a place in Core Dashboard where you can set up email notifications. And this will mean that Core will send you information on a periodic basis about when we indexed you. And we will then also be able to see and monitor any potential errors that might have happened. We in Core consider monitoring as an essential part. We are seeing a lot of repositories around us, which at some point start to have non-functioning OI/PMH endpoints. And by monitoring the health of your repository using this email notification system, you can be alerted to those issues and make sure that they don't happen. So we would highly recommend you to use this notification option functioning. Content tab is a tab for general management of all the information that Core holds about your repository. At Core, we believe that you, as a repository manager, stay in control of the content that we have indexed, and this tab enables you to do so. For example, content tab can be particularly useful if somebody contacts your repository and says that you would need to take down some content because, for example, there is something that was not supposed to be uploaded, but somehow got uploaded. So there is no need for you to contact us in such a case. You can just pick the article, click the button, and it will take it down from Core. Okay, and REOX metadata. So core gets information from repositories in a variety of standards, and the standards that core supports include Dublin Core, OpenAIRE guidelines, and REOX. And REOX is the metadata standard that core recommends. For institutions that are migrating to REOX, we provide tools that help them to ensure that their implementation of REOX is compliant to its standards. And there are actually two different options in this tab. The first one gives you an overall statistics about your repository, looking at all of your REOX records, and shows you how many of them are compliant with the REOX standards. Another one is for validating a particular metadata record. In the REOX validation field, you can input a couple of examples and see how compliant they are. And if there are any issues detected, we will also provide you with some recommendations to help you improve your metadata quality. As a principle, core wants to give you credit for the papers and information that we have indexed from your repository and that we expose on your behalf. Within the core ecosystem, there are multiple places where we can show your institutional logo. And while we are advertising your content to the outside world, your logo, the logo of your institution can appear on the core data providers page. We show logos whenever in search result. We show your logos in our discovery and recommender applications or plugins. So whenever we will be presenting content from your repository, that logo will be visible. But how do we get it? In the repository settings tab of the core dashboard, you can upload the logo of your institution or your repository and associate its papers across the core ecosystem, which includes, again, like a dedicated core data providers page, core recommender, and core discovery plugins. And just to recap the main points of the discoverability section. The core discoverability tools, including the Overview tab, Indexing tab, Notification tab, and Content tab, REOX Validator, all of them enable you to monitor the health of your repository system. All of them enable you to understand how the outside world sees your repository, helps you fixing any issues and potential errors that might obstruct your repository from being visible to the outside world, and also enable you to stay in control of the content that is made available to users via the core ecosystem. And now I would love to hand over to Petr, who's going to tell us more about open access compliance and FAIR.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So I just wanted to say that we have conducted a project very recently with the US Repositories Network, where we looked actually specifically in the issues of discoverability. And we have seen and observed that basically a lot of repositories had non-functioning OAI-PMH interfaces. And by working and effectively exposing the core repository dashboards to them, by doing very minimal interventions, we were able to increase the discoverability within the network of 20 participating institutions by about 50%, which accounted for something like 700,000 records. So we made 700,000 records from 20 repositories available, discoverable, which were not discoverable in the past. So these tools are incredibly powerful, despite the fact that they might seem relatively simple to you. So we really encourage you to take notice of the tools that help you to make sure that your content stays discoverable. I will now move to the next session and talk to you a little bit about open access compliance and FAIR. So there is a growing number of open access policies around the world, and of course, it is not within the possibility of CORE to implement a module for every single open access policy, which might exist at a national, international, or maybe institutional level. But we do provide modules for some policies, and we are very interested if you say that, for instance, there is some sort of a specific policy within your nation that you would like CORE to respond to. We are very interested in looking into whether we could provide a module for that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to speak about a few provisions that are provided within the CORE dashboard. And I want to also highlight that within one of the modules that we have, we also allow you to set up an institutional open access monitoring policy. But if you need more help or guidelines, I won't be talking about this specifically. You can contact our team later. I am now going to speak and give an example of a widely popular open access monitoring tool, which is embedded in the dashboard, which addresses the UK Open Access or REF 2021 and REF 2029. So it originally was designed for REF 2016, then 21 was used, and now it will also be used for REF 2029. REF stands for Research Evaluation Framework. It is an evaluation framework which is highly important for UK-based institutions, and there is an open access policy attached to it, which says that every paper needs to be deposited within 90 days of acceptance, and it might be in 2029. I have heard it might be publication, so there's a small difference. Now, what is important is basically that we provide information about the compliance. We can provide information both for the or for the funding organization, for the organization that actually is investigating the policy, and we also provide information about, in this case, this would be UKRI, but because we want this information to be transparent, we expose a module for the benefit of the institutions, basically. So effectively, we are finding ourselves a little bit in the middle of this. We can give compliance data to funding institutions, and we can also give and ensure transparency so that the data that gets submitted about those institutions are visible to the repositories and to those institutions. So that's the sort of logic. This is how the tab looks like. It effectively shows the outputs which are available within a particular period of time, and then basically what it does is that it is sorry, 1 second. Okay, apologies for this. I'm in a hotel room and someone came to my hotel room, so I do apologize for this. Okay, so this is the open access compliance tab, and what we do as well is we give you basically information here about which papers have been submitted within the 90 days window. And we can also find, because it doesn't need, the policy doesn't in this case particularly specify into which repository they need to be uploaded or deposited. So we tell you also about and conduct something called a cross-repository check, where we have information about the fact that some papers which were deposited too late within your institutional repository might have actually been deposited sufficiently in time, but to another repository. And you would feel, or some institutions might feel, that those papers are non-compliant. But actually, thanks to our tools, you can discover that actually those papers might be compliant. They are compliant with respect to the policy. So this could be a particular benefit. You wouldn't know this information just looking at your repository, but looking at repositories across the world, we do know that information. Another policy, which is also common and which is now important in the UK, it's a different policy called UKRI, Open Access Policy. This is a fund-specific policy, which basically says many things, but one of those things that it says is that metadata in repositories should be associated with an internationally recognized identifier. There are multiple identifier schemes, and it is beyond my possibility to tell you all about those. But what I want to kind of communicate to you is that every metadata record in any repository that supports OAI-PMH that already has an identifier, which is called the Open Archives Initiative identifier. These identifiers are minted in a decentralized manner. This means that these identifiers are they have an institutional prefix and then a locally unique suffix, and together they form a globally unique identifier. What CORE does is that we provide a resolver for these identifiers. What does this mean? This means that we can take your identifier and we can create a URL based on this identifier. And by clicking on that URL, we redirect people to the landing page of that specific material in your repository. So these identifiers are completely free. They are minted already by your institutions. Most institutions just don't know that they are doing it. There's no cost associated with this. And it means the following. I just want to show it on the following example. So what you need to do, the only thing that you need to do is that within the core repository dashboard, you go to a settings tab where you set a so-called mapping between the institutional prefix and the URL of your repository. And then within core search, for instance, we can display this sort of a object where you can click either on the identifier or you can say go to the repository landing page. And if this mapping has been set in the repository, then by clicking on any of your articles, clicking this button, go to the repository landing page, we will redirect you permanently to the landing page of that specific article. I think this is effectively how all resolvers should work. But the beauty of this is that it works for all articles in your repository. It doesn't work for just a few of them, and you don't need to submit metadata to any third-party service or pay any third-party service a penny to achieve this. And in addition to that, you will comply with the UKRI open access policy. Another example of us working to support open access policies is in the area of desirable characteristics for digital publication repositories. This is a United States recommendation. So USRN stands for United States Repositories Network, and these characteristics have been sort of created with the intention to tell how repositories should behave, what sort of functionalities they should provide. And what we do here is basically we are running a range of tests against repositories to see whether they are properly interoperable and what sort of facilities and functionalities they provide or capabilities they provide. And it's a set of automated tests, as I said, and then there are some recommendations which follow from it. Indeed, this was originally provided for the US rep network, but we have now decided to extend this module, and we're building it, and we hope to be able to launch this module, I would say, in the first quarter of 2026. Under the banner of FAIR certification. So basically, we are extending this module so that we would test for all sorts of relevant features of your repository with respect to it being findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And if you will basically follow this procedure, we will then be able to give you a certificate. This module is heavily under development at the moment, and as I said, if you're interested in this, stay in touch, and we will be able to let you know more shortly. Okay, so these were two specific areas. Catherine talked about discoverability. I then talked about open access compliance, and this is now I'm entering the third area basically of the webinar, which is about tools for understanding, enriching, and managing your collection. So what we try to do is we believe that we can give you tools to better understand actually your own repository and what's in it, and manage it basically in certain ways. And here again, I'm going to give a few examples. I won't be able to talk about absolutely everything. The first functionality, which I think is worth mentioning, is what we call the deduplication tab. We can automatically detect duplicate records within your repository, basically. How does it work? We use a technique called locality sensitive hashing. This is a computational technique that compares basically the similarity of the text of resources, and then we use it to detect that there might be duplicates within your collection. How can these duplicates get there? So a typical situation might be that there might be a paper which has multiple authors, and they both deposit the paper without knowing that the other person deposited it. It happens very often. We are yet to see a repository that would have no duplicates, basically. So we see a lot of repositories with a range of duplicates, but not every duplicate is necessarily wrong. Okay, there can be duplicates. There can be a range of reasons why these duplicates can happen. Sometimes duplicates are only different versions of the same manuscript. And so within this deduplication tab, we will present you with the versions that we discovered. A person can effectively see comparison. A repository manager or a repository administrator can see the two papers side by side. They can see the differences. And then they have the option to, for instance, mark paper as a different version. So say, for instance, one of them was a preprint and one of them was the version of record, let's say the final version. Or they can say, no, actually, this is a true duplicate and I do not want to have that in my repository. And so they can effectively go paper by paper or duplicate by duplicate, which is much faster than doing this, trying to do this without any support. And then they can download a CSV file, basically, which tells you, which can then be used to sort of conduct some action on your repository. So, for instance, you would have that information, and then you would say that certain records you want to delete, certain records you want to add additional metadata about this. Because if you have different versions, then maybe this can be marked adequately in the metadata. So that's about the deduplication module. Again, actually, the deduplication module, in the same way as the harvesting or the indexing status module, which Catherine presented, we also provide a notification there. So whenever the deduplication system is run periodically on your repository, and whenever we have conducted a deduplication check, you can receive an email. And that could signal to you that maybe you want to go and have a look and make sure that you're curating the data in the right way. We have last year developed a module for which effectively automatically, using machine learning techniques, tags content in your repository using in accordance with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So there are effectively many universities are interested in understanding how they are contributing, and if they are contributing to specific areas or goals set by the United Nations. Usually this information is needed at the level of at the management level of the university. For instance, a reporter from the news might ask the vice chancellor of the university, what is your university doing to combat climate change, let's say. And in those situations, it's very difficult basically for people to necessarily answer this. So this tool helps you to see which papers your institution published in these kind of specific areas, and can also help you to understand, or can help people at who are making decisions at the level of the university to perhaps direct funding or support to specific strategic areas. And strategic areas could be anything. It could be those areas in which you are strong, so that you get even stronger in them, or it could be actually areas in which your institution is weak, and but the management feels that that shouldn't be the case, and they would want to strengthen that. So effectively what this tool does is that it really we have developed a very fast machine learning algorithm that tags everything in every paper, and you can then see the breakdown for your institution, but you can also see at the level of each individual paper which paper corresponds to which United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. And in fact, indeed, it could be the case that some papers correspond to more than one United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. For instance, something can be about life below water, and at the same time, it can be also about about climate change. So this is the UN SDG module. We then provide a wide range of modules, and I will not go into each and every one of them, but these modules are for the enrichment of the metadata in your repository. I would like to illustrate this on two very quick examples, a DOI tab and the ORCID tab. So it's quite common that at the time of the deposit of the paper into the repository, the DOI might not be known. How could that happen? Well, if I take a paper which for instance has not been published, or which has been just accepted but has not been published yet by a conference or a journal, I don't know as the depositor what the DOI should be. My experience is that authors very rarely come back following the deposit. So in this case, we can have a lot of papers in repositories which actually get a DOI associated at a later point, but the DOI is missing in the repository. What can you do as a repository manager to reflect that in the metadata? You can go to the core tab. What we do is we triangulate the data which we receive from repositories with external DOI registration agencies, basically, including Crossref and DataCite. And we basically look for the same papers, and when we detect that there is a missing DOI, we let you know. And what you can do is you can download the CSV file, and then using some sort of a simple script, you can upload them and reflect those DOIs within the metadata of your repository. The same thing can effectively be done for ORCID. We try to detect that many times ORCIDs might be missing, and we want to sort of encourage you to have good metadata. We are also sometimes touching not just the metadata and doing some sort of triangulation. We are sometimes also looking into the full text of the content that gets uploaded into your repository. So we have a module for rights retention that looks basically into the full text and looks whether there's, for instance, a sentence that talks about rights retention statements. We also have a module for data availability statements. So again, extracting statements that talk about where the research data for that specific paper might be available. Finally, we are actually just concluding a project which is called SOFARE, which looks actually into the extraction of mentions of research software within the manuscripts. And again, this is quite a new thing. This is completely a LAPS module, basically. But the idea is that we can scan every research paper, basically, for the presence of research software, and so that this software can later be attributed and registered in repositories as a specific bibliographic record. And the idea is that this would be useful for supporting reproducibility because the non-existence of research software, basically, or the not knowing that certain research software was used, is a major reason for reproducibility or irreproducibility specifically. And also there is a crisis of people. There are a lot of people who develop research software, and these people rarely get credit basically for it. So there's another reason of helping people to be given credit for what they are doing. We have received some feedback, basically, from a range of people. You have seen that a lot of these enrichment modules somehow do certain detections. Then we provide that information and becomes downloadable in the dashboard, but it also is downloadable as a CSV file. And so if you want to integrate that information with your repository, you then somehow need to write a script, for instance, like Perl, Python, in the language of your choice, to basically get this, or Java, to get this, uploaded into your repository. This might not always be the most desirable, or I think this is doable, but not everybody has necessarily the skills. So we are currently thinking whether we could do even better than that. And we have started, therefore, exploring a collaboration with a company called ForScience, which actually provides DSpace solutions to see how whether we can create like a mechanism through which these kinds of changes can be automatically synchronized with your repository. And the thing that through which this would happen and that enables this is a protocol called Core Notify. Core Notify doesn't stand for Core Connecting Repositories. Core Notify stands for Confederation of Open Access Repositories. This is a new protocol which enables communication between repository systems. And through this, we want to effectively enable closer integration between the core dashboard and the repository systems. So this is an example for DSpace, but we are absolutely interested and committed to doing following the pilot with DSpace. We're very interested in doing it with other repository systems. So it's not like we won't stop with DSpace. So just in recap, there are a range of tools that help you to better understand the content in your repository that are available within the core dashboard. They include tools for deduplication, sustainable development goals, and then for enrichments with specific identifiers such as DOIs, ORCIDs, and so forth. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Catherine, who is going to tell you how to get started.
Yep, thank you, Petra. Thank you so much for that insightful overview of open access principles and FAIR framework and how to enrich papers with the help of Core Dashboard. I think your explanation set an excellent foundation for today's later discussion. And now I would love to move on to the next part of our presentation, which is, I would say, is a little bit more administrative. So for those of you who are already core data providers, but not a starting member yet, which means that you don't have the access to Core Dashboard, you would need to go to Core Membership for Core Data Providers page, find Starting Membership and click the button Become a Member. It will lead you to the form that you see on the slide, and after you fill it in, you will receive an automatic email, which you see on the right part of the slide. And this email will include the instructions on how to set your repository dashboard. You would you would just need to click the button sign in to the dashboard. But if you know that your organization is one of core data providers, which means that somebody from your organization has already have the access to the core dashboard, you would need to click the button create an account, again fill in the form, and the person who is running your repository will receive your request to access the core dashboard and approve it. As soon as you have access to the core dashboard, you are more than welcome to to invite any of your colleagues who might also benefit from it. And this can be done directly from organizational settings in the core dashboard. You just enter their contact email and send the invite. Currently, Core is working on a module that will enable you to be notified of new papers created by your academics that you might not be aware of. We would like all repositories to be correctly associated with their ROR ID. How? In the Core Dashboard, there is also an area where you can set your ROR ID. This enables us, core, to create a mapping between the repository ID and the institution ID. And at the same time, it enables you as repository managers to be notified of the papers created by your academics, which are missing in your repository. The fact that we know the ROR ID mapping enables us to produce these notifications for you. All the features that we talked about today are also documented. We have core membership documentation, and you can look up at any of the tools that we discussed and see how they work. You are also welcome to watch the video tutorials about some of the modules in the documentation. And additionally, we provide you with the core data providers guide, which you can find in which you can find how your repository should be set up. At the right lower part of each page of the core dashboard, or each module, each tool of the core dashboard, there is a feedback button, which allows users to communicate directly with our team without actually leaving the dashboard environment. You're always welcome to share your thoughts, to report issues, ask any questions, or comment on any aspects of the core dashboard's functionalities. And Petr, handing over to you back to summarize the webinar.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for bearing with us until this moment. We really talked to you. We're very excited about being able to provide the dashboard service. I just want to recap that there are 3 areas we talked to you about: how you can use the dashboard to increase the discoverability of your content, how you can use it to ensure that content in your repository is compliant with open access policies and is aligned with somehow the FAIR principles. And finally, about the last section was about understanding and enriching and managing the content in your collection. If you don't know something, I know this was fast-paced. Feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to check the documentation. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Mo, who is going to chair our discussion session.
Thank you so much to our presenters for that. We had initially sent out a form to have questions that we had asked, and we received quite like a number of them, and I think a lot of them are centered around similar conversations. So there's Petr and Catherine. I think I'm going to pose these questions to both. You're more than welcome to both answer as and when you feel like you've got enough information around that particular topic. I think we're going to go through, we've got time for about 5 questions. Okay. If I'm looking at it. So I've summarized them. There was a question in the chat, and I would suggest that I think it's a Martin Leghorn, if I'm saying it correctly. Catherine, you will reach out to Martin if possible, and then just take him one-on-one, him or her one-on-one on the conversation. Okay, perfect. So that one is sorted from the chat. Then from our question bank that we got from the survey or the questionnaire that we sent out, is that there was an individual that asked that they're not sort of core audience, but they're mostly interested in the content about monitoring open access compliance. This individual is a journal editor and is about to implement new data policy in this area, and they would just like a little bit more information around that. So I think, Petr, maybe you can summarize that just slightly, if there is any information that you can give at this point. Yeah, go for it.
So what I can say is that indeed, within Core at the moment, we don't and are probably unable to create a profile, let's say, for every open access policy that might exist around the world. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that we're not interested in being as comprehensive as we can in sort of covering a wide portfolio of open access policies. So I would generally say that if there is a national policy with which people would like to see us kind of checking open access compliance for, then we're very interested in talking to those individuals. We would be happy to set up meetings, because we kind of designed our open access policy monitoring tools in a sort of a modular way. So we it's not so difficult for us to adapt them to some extent, that basically the rules are, the rules can change basically, but the principles effectively stay the same. So, generally open access policies work in a way that there are some rules that make certain papers compliant or non-compliant, and that sort of applies across the board. So we can change the rules, we can develop new modules basically, and we would be very interested in seeing how this helps people.
Okay, awesome. Then we've got another question where it says, I think this is mainly a UK sort of applicable question that says, can CORE replace JISC's IRIS UK in terms of comparative statistics? If the individual remembers the question that they sent, you can either raise your hand and we will, maybe answer to you directly. But Petter, do you have an answer for that? Can CORE replace JISC IRIS UK? Can you keep it short if you can?
Of course. So just to say that, I'm very sorry that IRIS UK is going to be decommissioned. I am aware that a lot of repositories have used it. We have received this feedback also through the recent CORE board of supporters, that people were asking suggesting that maybe could CORE provide a service that for the monitoring of usage in repositories. We are interested in talking to JISC. We haven't managed to actually get a proper conversation with John Kay, who is responsible basically for this area. But we are interested in having a conversation. We don't have any sort of financial resources for it at the moment, and I'm trying to figure out what would be the implications at the moment of us going in that direction. So from the perspective of CORE, I would say I'm very interested in making sure that we support repositories in the maximum way we can. If repositories feel that we should really do it, then it's helpful for us to know that they want us to do it, because that sort of increases our understanding that we need to push for it more, basically. And at this point in time, I'm definitely investigating the possibilities around this.
Okay. I think we've got time just for one more question, and we've received so many amazing questions. What I'll do is
apologies, Mo. I believe that the webinar has been booked for 1 hour and 15 minutes, so I think we have more than 3 minutes. Okay, just double check.
Okay, no problem. Just to continue there, what I was going to say was that what we'll do is we will put some of the questions and the answers in a feedback sort of letter that we will send, or a note that we'll send to everyone that has attended this webinar, together with the recording. But while we're still on that, if you can answer the next question, Petter, and I think maybe this one can be for Catherine. It says, how much benefit and what are the options we have as a starting user? So this is information around starting users. Catherine, maybe can you take that one?
Yep, thank you, Mo, and thank you so much for the question. That's a good one. As you are most likely aware, in CORE we do have 3 different tiers of membership, which are CORE starting, supporting, and sustaining. And as a starting member, indeed you can have a range of benefits, and I would say most of the benefits that we talked about today. Those are the tools related to interoperability and understanding of how your system can be as discoverable as possible, and more analytical things or more analytical benefits are then included in higher tiers. But I would also like to highlight here that the CORE dashboard is only one of many components of the CORE membership. Hope that is helpful.
Sorry about that, Catherine. I was just trying to mute the members.
That's okay.
It's just that while you are going on and we need to mute, it was a bit of a challenge. But anyway, moving on, there is another question that says, what's the relationship between the CORE API and CORE's provision of the dashboard? That's an interesting one as well. And I think maybe let me throw that one to Petter. Petter, do you want to give us that
Absolutely.
relationship between the CORE API and the provision of the dashboard? Yeah.
Thank you so much for this question. I think this is a really cool question because, of course, in the future, we see, and we have been seeing this over the last few years already, there's an increased interest in machine access to scientific documents, scientific information, basically. And I think repository managers should understand that in the future, maybe 90% of accesses will be machine accesses, not necessarily human accesses. Now, human access, machine access is often, or human access is very often, and will be mediated by machine access. So human access will be mediated by machine access, which means that there's still a human who commands a particular query, but they now suddenly are able to process and read documents summarized from multiple places. This means basically that it's very critical for repository managers, or it will be very important for repository managers, to make sure that their content is machine readable, basically, because without machine readability, the content won't be discoverable. People won't be able to find it. People won't be able to reference it, basically. So I just feel that this is something I wanted to highlight, that by you making the content indexable, discoverable, basically, you are also making it more machine readable, basically, and from that perspective, this is the right thing to do.
Excellent, thank you. Our chat is very busy, and I'm going to take questions directly from the chat. I'm just going to pose them as they are. There's a question that says, is it possible to change the OAI URL to index only a specific set of literature from a repository?
Yes, this is possible. I would refer people to the documentation, which is called the Data Providers Guide, where we talk about the use of sets, basically. So indeed, OAI-PMH sets are something that is usable. We have also seen, there's one very good example of a UK-based repository. It's the repository from the White Rose Consortium, which is actually one repository that has three different, which corresponds to three different universities: Leeds, Leicester, and York, and each of them has an OAI-PMH set, basically, and we are reflecting them basically when they come to the dashboard, they are able to change and tell us that they are able to basically select the right set so that they can see their resources, or resources only related to one institution. So indeed, CORE supports OAI-PMH sets.
Awesome. We've got another one that says, it's Hannah. This one is from Hannah Wilson. It says, interested in the DAS identification function. Any information on how good you think it is as detecting DAS? Are full text files being read for these?
Yes, for data availability statements, the idea is that the full text files are read exactly, and that we are basically detecting the kind of sentences that typically express the DAs. The idea of the module is that we are trying to save the time of the repository manager in having to effectively open the PDF, look through the manuscript, and to search basically for the DAs, which we understand then can take longer than basically just sort of having it available. So that's the sort of logic of that module.
Awesome, Petar. I think when we say that we serve everyone worldwide, it's always very interesting to see someone say where they're from. We've got a Norma from Mexico, and he or she says, if I have access to my dashboard, is it implied that I'm a core member? My Cizan institution repository. Catherine, do you want to take that one? I think that's one for you.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question. Could you please repeat it?
Okay, so I think it's referring to the name of the institution, but the person is asking if they have access to their dashboard, is it automatically implied that they're a core member?
Yes, that's correct. It automatically implies that you are a starting member of CORE.
Okay.
If I may just to add, there are effectively four statuses you can have in CORE. You can be either only a data provider, which means someone who is giving us data but doesn't have access to the dashboard. Then you can be a member by becoming a dashboard user, you are automatically becoming a starting member, basically. A starting membership is completely free of charge, but gives you access to the dashboard.
Awesome. I'm going to jump back to one of the questions that we'd received from our sort of lists or survey that we had sent out. I think it's a very interesting question. It says that, what do I do if I see that core is indexing less content than the entirety of my repository? That one's very interesting. I think it's a contentious topic that we constantly have to answer, but we're always eager to sort of give that response. Petar, do you maybe want to answer that in like more detail and give a rounded sort of approach?
Absolutely. So this is a common question, and indeed this is completely normal. It's for instance, if you manage a website and you go to the Google Search Console, you will almost undoubtedly find that not every single page of your website has actually been indexed. And there can be very good reasons for it, because, for instance, you are not following exactly the sitemaps protocol, which would make it, which would make the indexing by search engines better, let's say, or there can be other reasons. With repositories, the situation is very similar. If there might be a range of reasons why certain pages, certain documents cannot be indexed in your repository. We want to be as transparent as possible with those institutions. I want to really highlight one very, very important thing. If core cannot index the content in your repository, it means that services like core, other services like core, will also not be able to index that very same content in your repository. So the way you need to look at it is basically indexers or crawlers are having a problem to index all of the pages in my repository. And therefore, perhaps I should look into the errors and maybe the warnings that you can find on the indexing tab to see what I can do to make my repository more discoverable, not for core, but for every other scholarly infrastructure service.
Okay, and I guess with that, it sort of sums up most of the questions that we've had. I think the rest is just conversations that I think we've managed to tie up everything. Noma, you're more than welcome for that. And please feel free to reach out to Catherine. She'll drop her email address in the chat for any repository related issues, any membership related issues. She will be more than willing to help you take a call, schedule it, and make sure that we give you the best service from a core perspective. And I think with that, I am going to afford everybody the opportunity to go, if you're British, to have a cup of tea, anywhere else to have some juice, water, and to just get a bit of time. And we'd like to thank you very much for affording us this time and spending this sort of hour and a bit with us regarding this webinar. We hope it was informative, and we are absolutely grateful for the attendance, and we hope to see you guys again. We will be hosting a series of these webinars in order to make sure that you get the best out of core as it stands. And thank you very much for the presenters. And with that, I'd like to close the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.